Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I want to say something a little bit special. The person that I have joining me today is somebody that has been a very good friend of mine for a very long time. When I first started doing YouTube, we had a bunch of creators that got together and we started our own little chat to kind of pick each other up and have conversation with each other and just be friends and family. And this is the person that introduced me to that group. He's somebody that means so much to me on a personal level, and we are way overdue to have this conversation. So I am joined by one of the best friends of mine on this entire fucking planet, Tiago. Tiago, how you doing today, man?
Hello, Sledge. I'm really happy. Thank you for that amazing introduction. I'm really flattered. I'm really happy to be here. This been due for a long time. I really wanted to interact with you over your channel, so I'm really excited. And I'm really happy to be here.
Right. And it's hard because you're currently living in the United Kingdom. So time zone differences make it hard to do lives and things like that together. But, you know, a little bit about you, because I want you guys to get to know Tiago a little bit before we talk about the reason that he's here. He's been a horror fan since around 2005 and is currently a filmmaking student. But not just a student, he's made a couple short films, been a part of things like that as well. So when you obviously are big into cinematography, that's your big thing. And it's not just horror movies. You do dance, you're a dance choreographer, which you are fucking amazing at as well. What got you decided, you know what, I'm gonna go to film school. This is what I want to spend the rest of my life doing.
Um, I should say that I've been a fan for filming since a very young age, and I will always been passionate about how films were created, about the behind the scenes cinematography, because I think cinema is the only art form that really communicates with an audience, because
Mhm.
you can feel many kind of emotions with different kind of movies. That's why movies are divided into genres, if that makes sense. Um, just a quick story is that I used to do nursing in the past, but after the first 2 years of doing nursing, I realized that it was not the career for me, because I realized that my passion was in cinema, because it will always been, but because of personal reasons, I never had that door open for me until I realized that it was for me. I thank the pandemic, because the pandemic really opened my eyes too on that. And yeah, I decided one night, I decided to change my life, because at the end of the day, you are the owner of your own life.
Mhm.
So I decided to choose myself, not choose some other people. And that's why I decided to choose filmmaking. And that's why I decided I had to create my first short film, which was That You for 2 years ago, because that was the requirement that my university asked me to do in order to become a filmmaking student, because my background was in science. So I really didn't have a filmmaking background when it comes to studies. So I had to do that from scratch. But as I said, I always been passionate as a hobby, filmmaking and movies and etc. But because growing up, I never got taught that that could also be a career. But because I had it as a hobby, I already kind of have knowledge, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I'm currently in my second year. I finished my second year, so I'm going into my last final year, which is in September 2023. Um, yeah, like I said, I've done a few short films on my uni as part of the courseworks, and I'm currently producing my next short film, which is called Good Evening, and I'm gonna start shooting it next week. And so I've just been producing it. I reached the goal for my fundraiser, so which was really exciting. So yeah, upcoming. I love this degree. I love filmmaking, and I will always like it's my biggest passion. Let's say.
Right. And you talk about Good Evening and you talk about, Royal Horror. You talk about how the pandemic really opened your eyes to what you wanted to do with your life. And that's when you created Royal Horror as an avenue to reach out and share your love and your passion with other people. And I'm so thankful you did, because I've made some of my best friends because of Royal Horror. We got me, we got you, we got Leanne and Seb, we got Anna, we got Kylie, Haunted Hippie. Like, all of us, we're all sweet and spooky, all super, super, loving to each other and caring to each other. We had Maya. We had a couple people that couldn't we don't talk about anymore.
Yeah,
But yeah, but you made that happen for me. You're the one that opened up to me and was like, listen, I have this group of people. We're just a little community. We'd love for you to be a part of this community. And Ashley and I were always so invited and so loved in our community. And I'm still friends with all of you today. Today I still talk to all of you. And I'm
yeah.
really hoping that someday we can get Leanne and Seb and you over here, and me, you, Leanne, Seb, Anna, Kylie, Celise. We can all make our own short film. I think that would just be heaven.
That's beautiful. So, and on the 25th of June, it's gonna be my third anniversary as Royal Horror. So I believe we started talking maybe a few months after I created the page, maybe a few chats here and there. So it's gonna be 3 years since we like discovered each other over social media, let's say.
Right. It's amazing how, like, for all the bad things that can happen through social media and the internet in
Oh yeah.
general, you can also make some of the best friends in the world. And because of you, I've been able, like I said, people that I now consider my family. We even Sierra, she got invited in, and she, people that I legitimately love
Yeah.
to death are all thanks to you, Tiago. So you are a great person, and you guys can become a part of his family as well. And all you got to do is click the social media links down in the description. Make sure you're following Tiago on social media. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel. Like I said, not only does he do Royal Horror, and he's a big horror fan, he's an amazing dancer. And when you watch his choreography and you watch some of the dances that he does, me personally, I dance like the whitest white guy in the world. I do the white dad dance, like that's what I do. But Tiago crushes that shit. So make sure you guys are subscribing to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following Tiago on social media so you can stay up to date on everything he has coming up. Good Evening will be coming out sooner than later. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following so you can get all the release dates and all the up-to-minute updates on Good Evening. So in order for you, Tiago, to become a filmmaking student, to create short horror films, and eventually make your full-length feature horror films, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now, Tiago, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And oh boy, is this a hot take. Tiago, your first horror movie was?
So my first horror movie, it doesn't mean that it's my favorite horror movie. So I just want to make that clarification because I absolutely hate that film. But it's my first horror, and it will always be there. It made an impact in my life. I didn't fall in love with horror because of that film, of course, but it is the first memory of horror that I have on my eyes. And that film, believe it or not, is Halloween Resurrection from 2003, I believe.
See, and here's the thing, like, I know that you're not a huge fan of the film. I really do like Halloween Resurrection. And the big thing with me is when I watch Halloween Resurrection, I'm never bored. I'm very entertained. Is it a great Halloween movie? No. But is it a movie I can throw on and be entertained and laugh and see some good kills? Yeah. And that's what I look for in a slasher. So is it your prototypical Michael Myers horror film? No. Is it a movie that tried to capitalize on what was going on at the moment in time? Yes. And when I watch this movie, I get transported back to the early 2000s. So do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it, Tiago?
Yes, because we will talk more about it, I believe. But I remember so well the day, the time, everything about that day. And I was, I believe, 6 years old. I was really, really young.
And
Really, really
even
young.
to a 6-year-old, I don't care what you say about Halloween Resurrection. If you throw this in for a 6-year-old that's never seen a horror movie, it's going to scare the shit out of them.
Yep.
It's just one of those movies that there are great kills in this movie. Like, for the problems that it has, the biggest problem I have with Halloween Resurrection is it retcons the perfect ending of Halloween H2O. I'm not a Halloween purist. So when people are like, they killed Jamie Lee in the first couple minutes, I don't care. I'm not here for Jamie Lee. I'm here to watch a good slasher. And again, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I think that she's amazing. I think we wouldn't have what we look for in a final girl today without Laurie Strode. So I appreciate the impact she's made on the horror genre. I think she's an amazing actress. But when I go into this movie, I just want to see Michael Myers do some killing. I'm not a Halloween purist, so that doesn't bother me. But do you remember who you were with the first time you had seen it?
So funny story. My parents, my sister, and I, we came out from the shopping mall. We had a family day outside, let's say, on that
Mhm.
era, and it was really late at night. Obviously, we were watching a movie, like a family movie. Obviously, my mom said go back to sleep because obviously I was 6 years old, and but I knew they were gonna watch a horror movie because my sister, She was 17 at that time because she's 11 years older than me. So she was
Mhm.
17. So of course, she had the age to watch a horror movie on my family's terms. So obviously, if you say to a 6 years old, don't do this, they will do it. So
They
of
will do
course,
it.
I sneaked out to the living room because they were watching the movie in the living room. And I could sneak out from my bedroom to the living room. So basically, I watched Halloween Resurrection without my family knowing, and they fall asleep. So when they fall asleep, I managed to go into the living room to watch the movie with a better view and stuff. So yeah, I basically watched the movie by myself without my family knowing, and it was really really late at night. So you more or less can see how that impacted me, and I guess we will talk more about it later.
Yeah, and it's amazing because, like, especially at that age, you want to reach out to your parents when you're scared. This is scaring me, but you can't because you're doing something you're not supposed to do. So you're in kind of a catch-22 at that moment. So, let's get right into it, man. Like I said, as a 6-year-old, this had to be very impactful on you. So, which scene was it, Tiago, that affected you the most from Halloween Resurrection?
Honestly, since the very beginning, because I do remember seeing the whole Michael Myers and Laurie Strode interaction in the hospital being really disturbing for me, because especially when he kills her and we see her falling from the building to the trees, that was really disturbing for me because again, this is the first interaction I had with horror. So I've never seen anything like this. All I used to watch in that era was Disney movies, animated films, etc. And even really being controlled by my mom because she really made sure that I could watch something easy for me.
Hmm.
So, and again, maybe the whole film, I think I was really scared throughout the whole film. I really didn't have a rest, but I still like watching Halloween Resurrection. And another scene that really traumatized me, and we will talk more about it in later, is when Michael Myers appears. I think on that time, of course, he really scared me. And when he kills, like his kill scenes, they were really, really scary for me. Because this movie, I haven't rewatched this film for a very, very long time because it really brings me back memories that I don't want because of the
Okay.
trauma and all of that. But I do remember one specific kill is when he kills, I don't remember the character's name, but Michael Myers grabs him by the head and he just squishes his head and all of his eyes. I think his eyes pop out or he just bleeds from his eyes, his nose, his mouth. So imagine that imagery for a
As
six
a
years.
6-year-old.
And it's really graphic. Like the movie doesn't hold back. The movie shows how Michael Myers basically strips this guy's head. So that was, I believe that's the most dramatic scene. And even until this day, believe it or not, sometimes that memory comes back to my mind. And
Right.
every single time I watch a Halloween movie, because I like the franchise, I'm a really big fan of the franchise, especially the new movies, not Halloween Ends, but the the very new movies, even the first trilogy. But every single time I watch a Halloween movie, I have nightmares because of Halloween Resurrection.
Right. And that's amazing because it really, really takes you back to that moment. And you just brought up, like, your favorite kill in the film, which is very graphic. But Halloween, like you just said, is a big franchise. And even though, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the franchise, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't probably the biggest horror franchise out there. Is Michael the most memorable for people that don't watch horror? No. A lot of people that don't watch horror movies, they confuse Michael and Jason. But
Yeah.
in the horror community, I think Halloween is probably the biggest franchise there is. And you talked about how you are a fan of the franchise overall. Which film in the Halloween franchise is your favorite out of all of them?
This might sound controversial, but my favorite is the 2018 version. Halloween 2018 is my favorite Halloween movie out of the whole franchise because many different reasons. I'm not a big fan of the original, even though I really admire it. I like rewatching it, but I think Halloween 2018 really I think it has the scariest Michael out of the whole franchise. Again, the kills are fantastic on that film. Cinematography is beautiful. And I've rewatched that movie so many times. So that's what I think is my favorite. And I always have such a good time while watching it.
That has my favorite moment of any Halloween film. When Karen's in the basement and she's crying and she's like, I can't do it. And then Michael walks out and she's like, gotcha. And she shoots him.
I'm so I can't do it! Gotcha.
I want to know. You talked earlier about why Halloween Resurrection was so traumatic for you. Can you give me a reason why this movie was such a traumatic experience for you?
So I'm glad that you asked because I love talking about this when someone asks me, how can a movie like Halloween Resurrection be traumatic for you? Because as we know, that movie is really hated in the community. It has a very low score, like 1.8. But
Hmm.
again, I watched it at the age of 6, so I was really young. So I do remember perfectly because I remember after finishing the film, obviously I went to sleep, but I just couldn't sleep. I kept dreaming about Michael Myers from that film. I kept dreaming about that he was in my house, that he was killing my family, that he was killing me. So I had a horrible experience with him, and it kept going for, believe it or not, and you can even ask my mother because, believe it or not, it kept going for 2 and 3 months. So imagine that experience for a 6 years old. I just
Right.
couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. Sometimes I will wake up in the middle of the night. I will run to my mom's bedroom and I will see if she's okay because I will have dreamt that Michael did something to her, or that like Michael Myers was on my mind for a very long time at such a young age. And yeah, that was a traumatic experience. Because I couldn't sleep. I just like at school, I almost failed the year of school on that era because I just couldn't sleep. I couldn't concentrate, and ever like I said before, even until now, and the main reason why I have nightmares with the Halloween movies is because of that. Michael Myers really scares me because of that traumatic experience that I had as a kid, and that's why it will always hold up with me because it was just so traumatic. And just because of that, I can't rewatch Halloween Resurrection. I just can't because it will always bring me those memories, and I know I will have nightmares with it. So that's the main reason. When I rewatch the Halloween franchise, I just don't visit Halloween Resurrection.
Right. Well, I mean, and I could see why. When you're having that type of traumatic experience and it carries on with you for so long, why would you want to go back and revisit something that really, really affected you to that type of level?
Yeah, I know the movie is bad, and maybe I can't rewatch it because now I'm not sensitive to horror because I love the genre. So it's hard for me to be scared, especially with a slasher like Halloween Resurrection, by just the memories and the trauma from that era that makes me not want to watch that movie.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, at least you get scenes of Busta Rhymes doing some karate.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Well, I mean, and we know that horror started for you with Halloween Resurrection, and we know what that movie means to you. It's very controversial still to this day, but usually my little buddy Ghostface is with me. But unfortunately, he's off filming Scream 7, so he's not here. So he wanted me to just ask you. As always, we talked about your first horror movie, but now I got to know what's your favorite scary movie, Tiago? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
My favorite horror movie of all time is always come on a really tight knot.
Mhm.
For the longest time, it always been Friday the 13th, the remake. That for so many reasons. Friday the 13th the remake is like one of the very first films that introduced me to gore, to slashers. I
Yep.
really watched that. One of the first horror movie that I watched at the cinemas, but because I sneaked out, so it's not like I was allowed. So it really holds a special memory with me. I know the movie is horrible. Like, don't get me wrong. I know Friday the 13th has so many mistakes, but I don't really care because you don't expect a masterpiece when you watch a Friday the 13th movie. It's my favorite movie just mostly because of biased opinions, because of how I grew with the film. When the film came
Sure.
out, I was just 10 years old. So I really enjoyed myself watching that film. I've rewatching it so many times, but it really comes tight into place with Final Destination 3. So, and I do think that Final Destination 3 might be slightly above Friday the 13th, just because Final Destination 3 is obviously my favorite franchise ever.
Mhm.
And Final Destination 3 is just, for me, I like, even if it's controversial, I always give five stars to that film. Again, I grew up with it. So many memories
Right.
from when I was a kid with Final Destination 3. Obviously, as anyone in the horror community, roller coasters, you just see them differently because of that film.
Hmm.
And I remember it's one of the very first DVDs that I bought when I was a kid, and I've been having that DVD since that. And yeah, both of those films, they really held a really special place on my heart.
Right. And it's funny because just because a movie is our favorite doesn't mean it has to be the best movie ever made.
Exactly.
And I agree with you with that. Like my favorite horror movie will always be House. And that was my first horror movie. Is it a perfect horror movie? No, it's not. But then like even newer movies, like I'm a huge fan of The Dark and the Wicked. Without House, I think that either The Dark and the Wicked or The Cabin in the Woods would be my favorite horror movie. So
Yeah.
are those perfect movies? No. But the way that I watched them, the way that I interacted with them, what I saw, those are the things that matter to me, the memories that come along with the film. So, Tiago, I've had an amazing time talking to you about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie, some of the things you're working on in your personal life. But before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to Halloween Resurrection. And what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, as always, Tiago, we're not ranking this movie on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. What we're doing here is strictly ranking Halloween Resurrection on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Tiago, what would your ranking of Final Destination 3 be?
Or Final Destination or Halloween Resurrection?
Or I'm sorry, Halloween Resurrection. I got Final Destination 3 in my head now. What would your ranking of Halloween Resurrection be?
Definitely 5.
Yeah.
Plus.
Like you said, if you're still having nightmares every time you think about the movie, it shows how impactful it is to you. So I know I said this at the beginning, guys, but we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, make sure you're subscribing to Royal Horror. I have the YouTube links in the description. Make sure that you are following Tiago on social media. I have those links in the description. So that way you can stay up to date on Good Evening and all the other things that he's going to be working on in the future. So Tiago, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.